He learned early that noise felt safer than truth. Laughter could hide fear. Busy days could hide empty years. While others chased comfort, he watched in silence, not because he was afraid to speak, but because he was afraid to waste words. Every morning looked the same streets, same faces, same routines pretending to be life. People talked about dreams like old photos. Nice to remember, too painful to chase. He listened. He always listened. At work, they joked about quitting, about starting something new, about changing everything one day. That day never came, and he noticed. Comfort wrapped around them like a soft blanket, warm, familiar, slowly suffocating. They complained, but never moved. They planned, but never started. They waited, but time never did. He felt it, that quiet pressure in his chest, the weight of watching years slide by unnoticed. He stayed quiet, because arguing with comfort is pointless. Comfort always wins in the short term. At lunch, they scrolled their phones, smiling at other people's lives, calling it inspiration. He saw it for what it was, distraction, a way to forget the questions that scared them. What do you really want? Why are you still here? How long will you keep waiting? Those questions make people uncomfortable, so they drown them in noise. He didn't. After work, they went home tired, not from effort, but from pretending. TV on, lights low, tomorrow postponed again. He walked instead, no headphones, no distractions, just footsteps and thoughts. He thought about time, not as hours or days, but as chances, missed chances, ignored chances, chances disguised as discomfort. Everyone feared failure, but what scared him more was success arriving too late. He imagined waking up one day, older, quieter, realizing comfort had stolen everything slowly. That thought kept him awake at night. Others slept easily. Comfort tucks you in gently. He stayed quiet, but his mind was loud. He remembered moments when he almost chose comfort too, when quitting felt easier than continuing, when silence felt safer than standing out. Those moments never disappear, they wait. He realized something most people never say out loud. Comfort doesn't ruin your life all at once. It does it politely, one soft decision at a time, skipping today, delaying tomorrow, convincing yourself there's no rush. There is always a rush. Time just doesn't announce it. He watched people trade potential for predictability, calling it stability, calling it maturity. But deep down, they knew. That's why they avoided silence. Silence asked questions. He embraced it, not because he was brave, but because he was tired of pretending. One evening, a colleague asked him, "Why are you always so quiet?" He smiled, not because he didn't care, but because the truth would sound strange. How do you explain that you're listening to your life ticking, that every joke feels louder when you know what it's hiding? He didn't answer. Silence said enough. That night he sat alone. No plans, no distractions, just a notebook, empty pages, and one honest sentence. If I choose comfort now, I choose regret later. Writing it hurt because it was true. Most people never write that sentence. They sense it, but they never face it. Comfort protects them from honesty. He closed the notebook, not with motivation, not with excitement, with clarity. Clarity is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It waits for you to be ready. He knew something would change. Not tomorrow, not dramatically, but soon, because once you see comfort clearly, you can't unsee it. And silence, real silence, stops being empty. It becomes preparation. The next days passed like they always did. Nothing changed on the surface, and yet everything felt different inside him. Once you notice comfort, you start seeing it everywhere. In the way people rush home, in the way they avoid risk, in the way they say maybe later with relief. He noticed how often fear wore a friendly mask, called itself patience, called itself responsibility, called itself being realistic. Those words sounded mature, but they felt heavy. At work, a promotion was announced. Applause filled the room. Smiles, congratulations. He clapped too, but he watched closely. The excitement faded quickly, replaced by the same complaints, same boredom, same quiet disappointment. Success without meaning feels empty. Comfort without growth feels heavy. No one said that out loud. They returned to their desks, back to screens, back to routines that slowly erased curiosity. He stayed quiet because he was starting to understand something important. People don't choose comfort because they are weak. They choose it because it promises safety, safety from judgment, safety from failure, safety from regret. Ironically, it delivers regret in silence. He thought about his own life, the choices he delayed, the risks he avoided, the dreams he kept postponing. He wasn't innocent. He had worn comfort too. That realization humbled him. This wasn't about judging others. It was about choosing differently. One evening he met an old friend, someone he hadn't seen in years. They talked about the past, shared memories, laughed easily. Then the conversation slowed. That familiar pause appeared. "So, what are you doing now?" the friend asked. He answered honestly, and then asked the same question back. The reply was polished, comfortable, safe, a job that paid well, a routine that worked, a life that looked fine. But behind the words he heard something else, a tired acceptance, a quiet surrender. His friend smiled, but the eyes didn't. They talked a little longer, about plans, about someday. That word again, someday. On the walk home, the silence felt heavy, not sad, just honest. He realized something. Comfort isn't loud, regret is. Regret shows up late at night, when distractions are gone, when excuses are quiet. That's why people stay busy. Busyness protects comfort. He stopped walking, stood under a streetlight, watched cars pass. Everyone was going somewhere. But were they moving forward? Movement and progress aren't the same. Comfort loves movement, as long as it goes nowhere meaningful. That night he opened his notebook again. The sentence from before stared back at him. If I choose comfort now, I choose regret later. He didn't add motivation quotes. He didn't write goals. He wrote questions. What am I avoiding? What scares me enough to stay quiet? What would I do if comfort wasn't an option? Those questions didn't feel inspiring. They felt uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort, he realized, wasn't the enemy. It was the signal. Comfort numbs. Discomfort awakens. He slept lightly that night, not restless, alert. The next morning something small changed. He woke up earlier, not to be productive, but to think. The world felt quieter, cleaner. He didn't check his phone, didn't rush. He sat with his thoughts and let them speak. Fear showed up first. It always does. What if you fail? What if you're wrong? What if you lose what you have? Comfort uses fear well. Fear keeps it alive. But another voice followed, quieter, steadier. What if you don't try? What if this is it? What if comfort costs everything slowly? That voice didn't shout. It didn't beg. It waited. He understood then. The real battle wasn't between success and failure. It was between comfort and honesty. Honesty requires silence. Comfort requires noise. That's why he stayed quiet. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he was listening carefully. At work, conversations continued, complaints repeated, jokes recycled. He participated less, observed more. People noticed. Some joked about it, some ignored it. One person asked, "You okay? You're very quiet lately." He nodded and meant it. Quiet wasn't emptiness anymore. It was direction forming. He didn't need to announce change. Real change doesn't ask for permission. It starts internally, slow, uncomfortable, invisible. That's how it survives. He realized most people wait for motivation, for certainty, for approval. Those things rarely come. Clarity comes from honesty, and honesty often arrives in silence. He wasn't brave yet. He wasn't bold yet, but he was awake, and that was enough to scare comfort. Because comfort thrives on sleep, on autopilot, on repetition without reflection. Once you wake up, comfort loses power. He stayed quiet, but not passive. Something inside him had shifted, not dramatically, not loudly, but permanently, and comfort felt it. Silence has a strange power. Once it enters your life, it doesn't leave quietly. It starts asking questions, not the loud questions, the uncomfortable ones. He noticed this during ordinary moments, while brushing his teeth, while waiting in line, while staring at the ceiling at night. Questions surfaced without warning. Is this really enough? Is this who I'm becoming? How long can I pretend this is fine? He didn't panic. He didn't rush to answer. For the first time, he let the questions stay. At work, a meeting dragged on. Plans were discussed. Buzzwords filled the room. Everyone nodded, agreed, moved on. He watched faces carefully. They looked interested, but not alive. That difference mattered. Interest fades. Being alive doesn't. He remembered being younger, how ideas once excited him, how time felt wide, endless. Now time felt sharp, precise, unforgiving. The silence kept working. During lunch, someone joked about quitting someday. Laughter followed, then plates clattered. Conversation shifted. No one meant it, or maybe everyone did. Comfort teaches people to laugh away truth. He didn't laugh this time. He smiled politely and stayed quiet. Later that day, he caught his reflection in a window. Nothing looked wrong. Nothing looked right. That's how stagnation hides. It looks normal. That night, he went for a walk. No music, no podcast, just footsteps and breath. The city moved around him. Lights, cars, people. Everyone looked busy, purposeful. But busyness isn't purpose. It's often avoidance with good marketing. He realized something unsettling. Most people don't choose their lives, they accept them. Not because they want to, but because questioning feels dangerous. Questions threaten comfort, and comfort defends itself aggressively. With logic, with responsibility, with fear dressed as wisdom. You can't just leave. You should be grateful. Others have it worse. Those phrases sound mature, but they silence growth. He stopped at a crosswalk, waited for the light. Time ticked. Seconds mattered. When did seconds start feeling valuable? That scared him. He remembered how easily he once wasted hours, scrolling, watching, distracting himself. Distraction had been his drug, comfort's favorite delivery system. No discomfort, no thinking, no change. The silence was taking that away and replacing it with awareness. Awareness hurts at first because you see clearly. You see where you settled, where you compromised, where you traded depth for ease. He crossed the street, kept walking. A memory surfaced, something he hadn't thought about in years, a promise he made to himself once, a quiet one, no witnesses. I won't live asleep. He had broken it slowly, without noticing. Not through failure, through comfort. That realization tightened his chest, not with panic, with clarity. He wasn't angry at himself. He was honest. Honesty feels sharp, but it heals. The silence followed him home, sat with him, didn't judge. It just waited. He opened his notebook again, not to plan, not to dream, to admit. He wrote things he never said out loud, fears, doubts, desires he buried. The words came slowly, then faster. Some lines surprised him, some scared him. Good. Fear often means truth is nearby. He didn't write solutions. He didn't write timelines. He wrote one sentence at the end. I am allowed to want more. That sentence felt rebellious, almost wrong. That's how deeply comfort programs people. Wanting more feels greedy, ungrateful, selfish. But wanting growth isn't greed, it's honesty. He closed the notebook, sat quietly. The silence felt different now. Not empty, not heavy, clear. He understood something important. Staying quiet wasn't about withdrawal, it was about listening deeply. Most people talk to avoid listening, to avoid hearing themselves. He was done with that. The next day he noticed resistance, internal, comfort pushing back. Why now? Why change? Why risk peace? But peace built on numbness isn't peace, it's sedation. True peace requires alignment between who you are and how you live. That gap had been hurting him. He just ignored it. Not anymore. At work, he declined a small distraction, then another. He didn't explain, didn't justify. Silence again. People didn't notice much, and that mattered too. You don't need permission to change. You don't need applause. Most transformations happen unnoticed, until it's too late to stop them. He stayed quiet, but inside something was organizing itself. Values, boundaries, intentions, not loud, not dramatic, stable. The silence wasn't isolating him, it was strengthening him. And comfort felt uneasy, because silence removes its hiding places. He didn't know exactly what came next. That uncertainty didn't scare him anymore. Staying asleep scared him. So he stayed quiet, listened, watched, and let the questions do their work. Comfort doesn't announce itself as a problem. It arrives quietly, like a soft chair, like routine, like good enough. He didn't notice the weight at first. Life looks stable, predictable, safe. But safety can become a cage when it asks for nothing from you. He felt it one morning, standing still, coffee cooling in his hand. Nothing was wrong. That was the problem. Days passed smoothly, too smoothly. No challenge, no stretch, no edge. He realized something unsettling. Comfort had stopped him from growing, and growth always costs something: energy, attention, courage. Comfort asks for none of that. It only asks you to stay. Stay where you are, stay quiet, stay small enough not to disrupt anything. He remembered advice people gave him. Don't overthink. Be realistic. Be thankful for stability. Those words sounded wise, but now they felt heavy, like blankets pressed too tightly. Warm, but suffocating. He began noticing patterns. How often people complained but never changed. How often dreams were spoken like jokes. How ambition was treated as childish. Comfort teaches people to mock desire, because desire threatens the system. At lunch, someone said, "This is just how life is." Everyone nodded. He didn't. That sentence bothered him deeply because it wasn't true. It was convenient. "This is just how life is the phrase people use when they stop asking questions. He excused himself early, went outside. The air felt different, sharper. Movement helped him think. He realized he had been waiting for motivation, for clarity, for confidence. But comfort delays action by promising future readiness. Later, when you're ready, when things slow down, later rarely arrives. Comfort doesn't stop you violently. It lulls you, like slow music, like routine nights, like acceptable dissatisfaction. He saw it clearly now. He wasn't afraid of failure. He was afraid of disruption, disrupting expectations, disrupting identity, disrupting the version of him people were used to. Comfort protects image. Growth threatens it. That scared him. Not because growth was dangerous, but because staying the same felt safer. Safety is seductive. It whispers, "You're fine. Don't risk peace. Others would love this life." Comparison is comfort's favorite tool. But peace without purpose turns into quiet despair. He didn't want despair, even the quiet kind. That evening he declined an invitation. Not because he was busy, but because he needed space. That was new. He sat alone. No distractions, no background noise. The silence returned, but this time it brought insight. Comfort wasn't evil. It was incomplete. Comfort is meant to be visited, not lived in permanently, like rest, not destination. He wrote again, short lines, honest ones. "I am bored. I am safe. I am unchallenged. I am responsible for this." That last line hurt, but it freed him. Responsibility gives power back. He wasn't trapped. He had chosen comfort, repeatedly, and that meant he could choose differently. The idea felt both terrifying and relieving. Terrifying because choice means risk, relieving because choice means control. He thought about time again, how quickly weeks disappeared, how years blended. Comfort accelerates time because nothing stands out. Growth slows time because effort creates memory. He wanted memory, meaning, weight, not more ease. The next day he made a small decision. Nothing dramatic. He chose effort over ease. Once, it felt awkward, unnatural. Comfort resists replacement, but he stayed with the discomfort, let it breathe. It didn't kill him. It didn't collapse his life. It just felt unfamiliar. That was enough. He realized something important. Discomfort isn't danger, it's information. It tells you where growth lives. Comfort hides that information. So he stopped avoiding discomfort, not seeking pain, but accepting challenge. One honest conversation, one difficult choice, one small step without guarantees. People noticed, slightly. "You've changed," someone said, casually. He smiled, said nothing. Change doesn't need explanation. Inside, he felt alignment forming. Not excitement, not adrenaline, clarity. Comfort was no longer his priority. Direction was. That shift changed everything. He still rested, still enjoyed calm moments, but he no longer confused rest with purpose. He understood now. Comfort is a tool, not a goal, and when used as a goal, it slowly drains life of depth. He wasn't angry at comfort. He was done being owned by it. The silence approved, quietly. And for the first time, discomfort felt like progress. Change didn't arrive with applause. No announcement. No dramatic turning point. It arrived quietly, like a thought he couldn't ignore anymore. He still woke up at the same time, walked the same streets, saw the same faces, but something underneath had shifted. Comfort no longer felt neutral. It felt like a decision, one he was actively refusing. That refusal was lonely. When you stop choosing comfort, you stop blending in. People noticed small things. He asked different questions. He paused before agreeing. He said no without apology. Nothing aggressive, nothing loud, just honest. That honesty made others uncomfortable because it reflected something back to them. They joked about him, lightly, thinking too much, trying to be different. He let them. Explaining yourself is another form of comfort. It keeps the peace, but it delays alignment. He chose silence instead. At night, doubt still visited. Discomfort doesn't disappear. It negotiates. What if you're wrong? What if this effort means nothing? What if comfort was enough? Those thoughts were persuasive, familiar. But he noticed something. Doubt felt different now. It didn't paralyze him. It sharpened him. Before, doubt was an excuse. Now it was a checkpoint. He wasn't chasing certainty anymore. He was choosing direction. Direction doesn't require confidence. It requires honesty. He became honest about energy. What drained him? What quietly excited him? What he avoided because it felt difficult? Comfort hides energy patterns. Discomfort reveals them. He began doing things without witnesses, without posting, without sharing, growth without an audience. That was new. Most people perform change. He practiced it. No one claps for private discipline. No one praises quiet consistency. But that's where identity forms. He noticed how long it had been since he had truly struggled. Not stress, not busyness, struggle, the kind that demands presence. Comfort had removed that, and with it, a part of himself. Struggle brought him back, not all at once. Slowly. Some days felt heavy. Some days felt pointless. But even on hard days, there was movement. Movement creates meaning. Stagnation creates stories you tell yourself. He stopped telling stories, started doing work, small work, unimpressive work, the kind no one notices, the kind that compounds quietly. Others chose ease. He chose effort without guarantee. That difference widened. Friends talked about weekends. He talked about progress. Not bragging, just different focus. They relaxed. He built. Not because he was better, but because he was done waiting. Waiting is comfortable. Action is awkward. Awkwardness became familiar. He realized something surprising. The fear he had imagined was worse than the reality. Nothing collapsed. No one left dramatically. Life didn't punish him for choosing growth. It simply stopped numbing him. Feeling returned. Not always pleasant, but real. Comfort dulls emotion. Growth sharpens it. He felt frustration clearly, satisfaction deeply, fatigue honestly. That honesty was grounding. He trusted himself more. Not because he succeeded, but because he showed up. Trust is built through action, not outcomes. He no longer asked, "Will this work?" He asked, "Is this aligned?" Alignment simplified decisions. Some opportunities lost appeal. Some distractions fell away. He wasn't missing out. He was narrowing focus. Focus is uncomfortable at first because it excludes, but exclusion creates clarity. He stopped comparing paths. Comparison feeds comfort. He started measuring days differently, not by ease, not by pleasure, by effort given. Some days he failed, completely, but failure felt cleaner than passive success. Passive success is comfort disguised as achievement. He wanted to earn progress, even if slower, even if quieter. One evening, he reread his earlier notes. "If I choose comfort now, I choose regret later." The sentence still held weight, but now it felt different, less warning, more reminder. He added a second line. "If I choose discomfort now, I choose growth later." That felt right, not inspirational, not dramatic. True. He closed the notebook again, not with relief, but with resolve. No one noticed the shift. That was fine. The most important changes don't announce themselves. They show up over time, in consistency, in direction, in quiet confidence. He stayed quiet, still, but now his silence was no longer waiting. It was moving forward. There came a moment when waiting stopped feeling safe. Not dangerous, not dramatic, just empty. He noticed it on an ordinary morning. No crisis, no deadline, just the weight of another later. Later had become a hiding place. He had lived there for years, promising himself time, borrowing from tomorrow, assuming it would wait. But time never argues. It just moves. That realization didn't panic him. It clarified him. He stopped asking, "When will I be ready?" Readiness is comfort wearing a mask. Instead, he asked, "What costs me more if I delay?" The answer was immediate. Delay was expensive. Every postponed decision collected interest, energy lost, confidence eroded, self-respect quietly taxed. Waiting felt heavier than acting scared. That was new. Fear used to be the wall. Now it was the doorway. He didn't become reckless. He became deliberate. He chose one thing, just one. Something small enough to start, big enough to matter, and he committed. Publicly or privately didn't matter. Commitment changes posture. Your body knows when you mean it. Days became structured, not busy, intentional. He woke with purpose, not urgency. Urgency is fear. Purpose is direction. He stopped consuming motivation, started producing effort. Motivation fades. Effort compounds. Some days felt slow, painfully slow, but slow progress felt better than fast distraction. He learned something uncomfortable. Most people don't fail because they try and lose. They fail because they never fully try. Trying fully exposes you. Waiting protects you. Protection was no longer attractive. He allowed himself to look foolish, to ask questions, to submit work before it felt perfect. Perfection had been another delay tactic. Done imperfectly, beat plan perfectly. The world didn't react, and that surprised him. No judgment, no punishment, just neutrality. Fear had exaggerated consequences. Reality barely noticed. That emboldened him. He took another step, then another. Momentum doesn't feel powerful at first, it feels fragile. But fragile things grow when handled daily. He began measuring progress weekly, not hourly. Hourly progress breeds impatience. Weekly progress reveals truth. Some weeks showed little change. Others showed sudden leaps. Consistency created those leaps, not intensity. He learned to forgive slow days, but not empty ones. Slow with effort was acceptable. Slow with avoidance was not. That distinction changed everything. He adjusted expectations, not lowering standards, but aligning them with reality. Real growth is uneven, messy, unpredictable. Comfort promises smoothness. Growth delivers texture. He preferred texture. It meant he was alive, engaged, participating. Waiting had been passive living. Now even uncertainty felt active. He felt tension differently, not as threat, as signal. Tension pointed toward meaningful work. Comfort pointed toward stagnation. He followed tension. Friends noticed changes, not in words, in presence. He listened differently, spoke with less hesitation, not louder, clearer. Clarity is confidence without noise. He stopped seeking permission, stopped seeking validation. Action had replaced explanation. Explaining drains energy. Doing generates it. He respected his time more, which made others respect it too. Boundaries formed naturally when direction became clear. Time stopped feeling infinite, but it stopped feeling wasted too. That was the trade. Less illusion, more impact. He accepted that not every effort would pay off, but every effort would teach. Learning became the return. Waiting teaches nothing, it numbs. Action sharpens. One evening he realized something quietly powerful. He wasn't chasing success anymore. He was building capacity. Capacity lasts. Outcomes fluctuate. That shift removed pressure. He could fail and continue, adjust and persist. Waiting offers comfort now at the cost of capacity later. He chose capacity. That choice changed his relationship with time. Time stopped being an enemy. It became a collaborator, but only if he showed up. He didn't need certainty. He needed continuity, small actions, repeated, without drama. That was enough. Waiting had ended, not with a leap, but with a step he finally took seriously. And once taken, it refused to let him go back.